Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined today by Sandi Rhys Jones, who is the president of the CIOB, and we're going to find out a bit about her and her background, and very excitedly find out more about the hashtag PPE That Fits campaign. That is something the HSE people network is very keen to support and be involved with. So if you don't mind, Sandi, could you just begin by explaining a bit about your background and how you came to be in the prestigious position that you're in today?
Oh, prestigious position. That was a surprise. I've worked in the industry for many years and been very involved in all sorts of activities around improving performance. So I've worked on government industry working groups. I've been involved in initiatives to improve performance at the same time as running my own business in the industry, which I've done for a very long time, working across the industry, contractors, consultants, specialist subcontractors, manufacturers of cement and so on. And one of the things about this, which I was a bit slow to twig really, which sounds a little odd, is that I worked across the industry because the industry has so many different sectors. If you work across the industry, you can work in a non-competitive way. But what it also gave me, I then realized, was a reputation for understanding how the industry works and all the different players, but I wasn't seen as partisan. And when I was taken on to do research projects or to help organizations improve or bring about change or diversify, it became clear that one of the factors was the fact that I could be a critical friend. So I wasn't seen as a consultant's specialist, although I worked with them. And I think, getting back to your original question, probably one of the reasons why I am in this position now, which is really so rewarding and very exciting and a bit humbling, I have to say, is that the CIOB itself is a very broad church. And that is so special, that we're not in our silos. It's not the engineers wondering whether to speak to the surveyors or the professional versus the non-professional, which is a red rag to a bull for me. It's recognizing that there are so many different roles, and this is a body that is a home to them all, with a key objective of really being very competent, committed, modern professionals. So in a roundabout sort of way, I think that's one of the reasons why I have ended up with this post, because of this broad approach, and because I'm a compulsive builder. I think construction is nothing short of miraculous, even though it can drive you nuts sometimes. It is an amazing industry. So I hope that goes somewhere to answering your question.
Oh, it does. It does, and your passion is palpable. It's lovely. Can we talk about the hashtag PP That Fits campaign? Because that's obviously something that's becoming more and more relevant in construction and other industries. And you obviously have the reach to, you know, impact people with this campaign. How did it come about?
Well, it's been niggling me for quite a while because I'm a compulsive builder and I do quite a lot of the work myself. It was always an irritation to get stuff that fitted, but I saw it very much as a purely personal thing. But what really brought it to a head for me was a few months ago, a friend posted on LinkedIn that she was horrified to find that her daughter, who was one of two women on a welding course, was not provided with the proper flame-proof protective equipment until the very last week of their course. And she quite rightly was so incensed and upset by this. She had a little bit of a vent on LinkedIn. She's an engineer. Her daughter has stayed in the non-traditional role, if you like, but she's moved away from the built environment sector. She's gone to a different sector, but fulfilling the same sort of work, where she felt that it was recognised it was important to do this. And that just triggered with me that this was something that had been rumbling in the background. The number of women has increased. I know percentage terms, it looks pretty poor. But if you look at what that means in real human beings, it changes the dynamic. If you say we're 14%, I mean, I know on site it's a lot less, but the average, 14%. If you look at 14% of the construction industry workforce as a whole, which is very big, you're talking way over 300,000 women. And that feels rather different, doesn't it? That seems rather a lot.
Yes.
All different shapes and sizes, all doing different jobs. Most of the women I know, and I know a lot who work in the industry, love being on site. In fact, that's another issue. How can you progress without leaving site in a way? So I started making inquiries and raised the issue, and it just took off, including meeting some very interesting and very thoughtful women who have done a lot of it for themselves. So that's when I thought, let's sit round a table. And CIOB said, yes, this sounds good. CIOB People, which is the journal specifically looking at human resource issues, said, yes, let's sit round a table and talk. And it is quite clear that there is a really important need, and there is a failure in the system to recognise it. It's been very easy to say, oh, well, we'll have small, medium and large and XL. And then there's the, and we'll make it pink. But as one of our participants said, who'd spent a lot of time in the scaffolding industry and is now working with ISG, she said, No, you can't just wash it under the carpet like that. You don't pink it and shrink it. Let's think it. And she could really back up this observation because she's 5'11", so this knee-jerk reaction into, oh, well, I suppose we've got to get PPE that will fit women, so we'll just reduce it all down. And that, the more I get involved in this, the more I realise that it is, some of it sounds so obvious, but it's body shape.
Yeah.
And I think, and then there's pure safety. I mean, again, one of our participants who was until recently a tower crane driver said, you look like a clown for a start. So that takes away confidence. I mean, you just feel that. So she said, you're wearing trousers where you're rolling them up round the feet, and the crutch and everything else is in the wrong place because that's the way it is. And we've got bosoms and bottoms, but, sometimes in different places and on a different scale, but it's a body shape thing. And she said the sleeves are far too long and gloves generally are far too big. How can you climb scaffolding or the tower to a tower crane or do plumbing or electrical work if your fingers of your gloves are an inch longer than your fingers? So it really is a PPE issue. The answer's in the name. Personal protective equipment. It's not a question of saying, well, I'd like it to look nicer. So the workshop we had looked really seriously at this, and I think it's important also to make the point that I was an employer. I ran my own business. I had staff. I'm not a rose-tinted spectacle, unrealistic person. I understand you need to run a business or produce materials or supplies and protect your workforce in a business-like way. So where were the issues? Was it a procurement issue? Was it a manufacturing scale issue? So we've acknowledged that. But as we've been told, where there is properly fitting PPE, it flies off the shelves. So there's a demand.
Yes.
Yes. There's a
Absolutely.
demand, and there is a pure justification for it. So where are the blockages? Why isn't it working? And that's what we've really begun to unpick. And in the meantime, the sisters are doing it for themselves. one of our roundtable people has just had a footwear company produce boots because the boots aren't made to a female last, which is why rugby players and football players have problems because they're not designed right. So that is really very exciting. I'm really interested that we've also produced now this guide, a resource guide. Here are the companies that are doing it. Interestingly, quite a few overseas, but we've also had a lot of input from CIOB connections and people abroad. So there's a company been launched in Australia to provide PPE that fits, and it includes also things, maternity PPE. And there's simple stuff. I mean, I can't believe this doesn't affect blokes either, but I mean, I never wear a jumpsuit anymore. I don't know about you, but I mean, the whole kerfuffle when
Yep.
you know. And somebody has now got round to designing a coverall, boiler suit, jumpsuit, however you want to describe it, that unzips around the waist.
Yep, I know exactly who you're talking about, and we're all very excited about that. I think
Yes, is
that has
brilliant.
huge potential and such a simple idea.
Yes, yeah. So we're really, really happy by the reaction, the response. Across the industry, men, women alike, manufacturers approaching. And I think the final little comment, which I find quite interesting, is that I have had engagement from 3, or is it 4 now? 3 women who've worked in the fashion industry saying, this is really interesting. I'm now working in the construction sector, and they seem to have identified the issue back to body shape. They're saying in the fashion industry, you design for bodies and shapes. In construction protective wear or in workwear, generally, uniforms, it's a variation on a square or a rectangle.
Yep.
And the latest, I don't know whether you've seen this, I should send this through afterwards. There was a wonderful picture of one of the winners in the top 100 women in construction last night, who made her evening dress out of high-vis fabric.
We
Yes.
saw that. What a fantastic symbol.
Yes, yes. So to me, I've been thinking about that a lot today, because I did have a little blip in my construction. Well, I say a blip in my construction career. I started as a journalist. I started in advertising, then as a journalist, and then I became involved in the management and the construction research and other areas. And at one point I thought, oh, girls aren't supposed to do this. And I was offered a job on a trade fashion journal, the equivalent of Women's Wear Daily, but here in the UK. So I was a trade fashion journalist for a couple of years. I was drawn to the production. I mean, it was quite nice doing the pretty stuff, and going to the shows and fashion shows. But what I was really interested in was all the changes that were taking place at that time with regard to production, new elastomeric fabrics, laser cutting techniques, So again, I was drifting back towards the technology. So to come round now, many years later, and have conversations at WEAG last week with a woman who's involved in social value and customer care, saying, well, I was in the fashion industry. It just reminds us that you don't separate. We're back to the silos. And there's an opportunity there to work with each other. So these perceptions of how you make clothes that fit, that do the job, so you're not conscious of wearing them. That's where we want to be, isn't it? You want to feel
Absolutely.
you're putting something on that fits, is serviceable, does the job, and is functional, and preferably
forward, and let's hope PPE that fits.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Hope that eventually we all have